Okay, I could just hear myself. Sorry. I was just staring at my own stream. My mother's child. You don't hear me? Oh, okay. I don't hate Creed. Me neither. I used to say I did because my dad was a big fan of it, but the older I get, the more I'm like, you know what? He was kind of onto something.
Think your taxes are simple? You could file for free with H&R Block. More people qualify for H&R Block free online than TurboTax.
Oh, shit. Oh my God. Stop. What are we doing?
It all came just crumbling down.
There we go.
Postpartum, my family had a lot of struggles at that time.
Okay, just real quick, if you don't know Matt and Abby are some Christian family vloggers. They're big on TikTok. I think they're big on YouTube too, but okay, thank you. Gotcha. And I think they're big on YouTube, but I don't watch them. I'm not sure. They have a podcast that's pretty popular. And with that said, here we go.
And then these books come out. I came to a point where I was just like, what do I believe?
Like always, just let me know if there's any audio issues.
What is even real?
Your mom literally had how many different pregnancies? Because there was a couple twins in there.
There's 2 sets of twins, but she also had a stillbirth with her last, so it would have been like 18 pregnancies.
This is so crazy.
I totaled my truck.
It was bad. I'm crying, holding his arm. My brother that comes with my dad is like, Pops, Joy has been holding on to Austin's arm this whole time. They're courting. They're not supposed to even be holding hands.
We sat down with Joy Duggar Forsyth and Austin Forsyth from the hit TV show 19 Kids and Counting. As a Duggar, Joy grew up following the teachings of IBLP, which didn't allow her to wear pants or even hold hands with her boyfriend. In a recent YouTube...
I wonder how much, you'll actually, learn about Joy from this.
video, she opened up about how reading her sister Ginger's book changed her perspective on her faith. We talk about all this and so much more in today's episode. Hey, real quick, I just wanted to let you know that if you are watching this podcast while you're driving a vehicle or doing something that you probably should have your full attention on, please listen to the audio only version of this show. You can do that on Spotify. You can do that on Apple Podcasts. We're on every single major audio platform for podcasts out there. So just wanted to let you guys know that.
Has that been a problem?
I'm sure someone does it. More people watch the podcast than listen to it.
That's the first time I've ever heard somebody give that warning on a podcast. I mean, it's not bad.
So I just wanted to let people know they can listen to it.
Oh yeah, I really tune in to podcasts when I'm driving. So
yeah, you're an Apple Podcast.
Yeah, I'm on audio.
That's funny. See, I listen to my podcast on Spotify.
Well, hopefully not when you're driving.
Well, I listen to podcasts while I'm driving, but not watch them.
Listen on Spotify.
Yeah.
Okay. Well then, thanks for being safe, babe.
Yeah, I like to be
safe too.
Yeah, be safe.
PSA.
If you're driving a car, listen to the podcast. Don't watch it. Now, back to the episode.
What's up, dudes?
And welcome back to the Unplanned podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here, you guys. Seriously.
Oh yeah, thank you guys for having us.
I kind of wanted to just jump right in because I want to know more about your love story. I think it's so cool hearing about the courting process.
I hope when I swallow my juice that it's not really loud and weird.
Because we got married young, but that was something that we never did. And I noticed Joy, you had opened up on your YouTube channel about how did you want your kids to court one day? And so I thought it'd be kind of interesting just to hear more about what courting was like for you guys and just your love story.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it started a long time ago, over 20 years ago.
They were extremely horny.
No.
Yeah.
Not really, but we met.
It radiated off the screen.
When we originally met, our families. I have no recollection of that, obviously, but his family had moved from Texas at the time and moved to Arkansas and started coming to my family's church, and then we kind of saw each other on and off until.
Yeah, same homeschool events or whatever. We would see each other on and off throughout the year.
Yeah.
Big Sandy. Big old matchmaking at Big Sandy.
And then once you got your driver's license is when we started seeing each other a lot more.
Yeah.
And he would come up and play flag football with my brothers, whatever. We had, once a week they would play football, or we had this sport called broom ball that we would play once a week. And so he would come up and I would see him there. And I remember actually oh, there's Austin. I like him.
Was it because I was around so much?
Yeah, well, because you started coming around and then all.
She looks so pretty lately. Different. She looks different. I don't know if she's done something different, but she looks great.
Also, like I just turned 13
Not that she never did, but she looks like something's different. I don't know.
at this time. Or I was 13, almost 14 at this time. And so I remember like meeting you, knowing who your family was, like around that time. And then at 14, I started crushing hard on you. And I was like, I remember Jill actually telling me one time, because I was like, I just like him so much and whatever. And she's like, I was like, how do you know, like, it's the one? She was like, I don't know. She's like, she was going down this list of things, and I was talking to her, and she was like, well, and like, can you imagine your life without him? I was probably 15 at this point, and I was like, I can't imagine my life without Austin in it. Just because he was around, and I think it's probably like the teenage whatever, but I just felt so sure that at like someday I was going to end up with him. And so, and he didn't, I don't think he ever knew that I was.
Yes, I would say it is. Only it's not blind. It's like a very slow burn over 15 years until you hit 18 or however, whenever you meet somebody. Probably.
Saving money feels right. Just like when things are packed tidy and tight. Get auto insurance that fits your budget.
I have a feeling this is going to have a lot of ads. Matt and Abby seem like some real ad people, but yeah, I feel like Big Sandy is the I don't know, what's the dating show, a dating show that doesn't deal with blindness or marriage visas. I can't think of what.
I mean,
I only watched 90 Day Fiancé.
Right, she's 14, I'm 18, like, and and I'm hanging out with her.
Wait, what? She's 14 and you're 18 and you're hanging out?
Older brother, John, who's what? He's 22.
Yeah.
I don't know if I knew that.
Yeah, he's 22 at the time, and I'm 18, and so
he was oblivious that
you weren't even paying attention to her. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the legit story of like, I'm over here, you know, you don't even know I exist. Like, yeah, I knew she existed. I knew who she was, but not on my radar, obviously, at all, because that would have been weird.
I wonder if he just says that, or if it's true. I hope it's true. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Become on your radar? When did you start to notice her?
Okay.
When she was legal.
That is
exactly.
Yeah, that's a long story.
The second.
You don't have to go into detail.
So I was 21, and I'd been interested in this other girl, and
he had been talking to me.
Ooh, who was it? I want to know.
Ginger and Jana about this other girl that he was gonna go ask.
Talking to you about it?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And I was
so
17 at this point, right?
Yeah. So at that time, I'm 21. I was close with John, her brother.
Hi, Micah. Hello from Tumblr. My favorite
and some of her other younger ones, but mainly John. Okay. And we were in flight school together, John and I.
Of course.
And it was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of weird, but Jana, well, okay, so I was flipping houses at the same time. Single, you know, my dad was in construction, and so I started flipping houses when I was 17, and one of them was in
all these people flip houses. It's like a
Springdale, somewhat close to where they lived. And so her brothers would come over and help me on projects, whatever. I was laying floor, they'd come over and help me lay floor, or help me do stuff. Well, she would come over as well.
I gladly offered my services because my dad like taught us how to lay tile, all of that growing up. Wow. So I was like, oh, you're tiling your bathroom? I'll come over and I'll help you.
Aww.
And so you know, just to spend time with them.
Jana and her and Ginger, like it was this time where like we were all close, right? And so I'm telling them about this girl that I want to like start dating down in Texas.
And I was fully supportive. I was like, that's so good for you. I'm so happy.
What does close mean, I wonder, for male and female friends who grew up in this kind of community? Like, what does that mean?
And it crushed on the inside, like, okay, maybe this isn't going to happen.
So fast forward, that didn't happen. And and so I was at a place in my life where I'd spent a year like kind of definitely mentally pursuing this girl. Her brother out of the blue invites me to go to flight school. He's like, hey man, why don't you come down and go to flight school with me? He had already been through his private and some other certifications. He's like, hey, why don't you come get your private pilot's license? I was like, all right, I guess I ain't got anything else going on. I'll come and do that. And so at that point, I was at a place in my life where I was like, you know what? I'm tired of just kind of spinning my wheels, and like I wasted so much time and energy and thought in this relationship that I wanted to work out. It didn't work out, and I'm ready for something new. And so while
God, I wonder who it is. Does
I'm
anybody?
at flight
I wonder if anybody like on Reddit knows who it
school,
is.
long story.
I'm so
While,
nosy.
it's almost over. While I'm at flight school, one day I get out of bed, I'm sitting there, and the thought comes in my mind, well, what about Joy? And I'm like, nah, she's way too young. Like, no. And like I just said, I'm not like gonna be distracted by other things. Like, nah. And so, long story short, she was all I could think about. I'm at flight school, literally trying to learn how to fly airplanes, and the only thing I can think about is, what about Joy? I think for me it was a place of contentment that I needed to be in my life.
Yeah.
And
See, that is never how I've experienced a crush. It's always been I see someone, they're my type, I'm like, I have a crush on you. Or at least like you spend a few minutes with them and you're like, oh, I like this person. I've never like known somebody for a long time and it's hit me like a truck, like, oh, what about Joy? What about,
so didn't tell
Well,
a
and
soul.
okay, so on
But
my
maybe that's
side
just
is
me.
like I'm 17, almost 18 at this point,
Yes,
and
you are a
Well,
minor.
you were, because this is December.
I
So
just turned 18.
You just turned 18.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah, make sure to tell them you're not a minor.
at this point, I'm like talking to my parents every night, my mom, my dad, like I just like I feel like I'm gonna marry this guy. I don't know what to do. Like, and my dad's like, well, I don't know if it'll ever
Sure
happen because we knew him growing up. My
Sure, Jim Bob gave great
dad
advice.
knew like whatever he didn't want to like get my hopes up for something. And so I'm talking to them, but I'm the same way. I'm like, I literally cannot stop thinking about him, and that's like I want to.
No, Micah, I had never heard that either, and I'm very, very curious about who it is. I feel like we would know. Like if he dropped the name, I feel like Tumblr people or Reddit people, somebody would know.
Get married tomorrow, like, and I had not shown interest. I really tried to not be that girl that's like
Who it was, I mean. I don't know if anybody actually like has heard him say that.
pursuing him and like throwing myself at him because I'm like, what if he's not? Like, I don't want to ruin our relationship because we were good friends at this point. We were talking, like he would share stuff that he was going through. So I feel like we both kind of came to that point at the same time, unknowingly that.
So, hate to pause again, but she says we were talking maybe because they were like in like a pre-courtship thing, but it's also like when fundie girls say, I have a close guy friend. What does that look like? Do you get to talk? Like, do you get to talk to each other, like text or something?
We were
I
both
doubt
just
it.
thinking about each other. God, is this what you have for us? But none of us none of us knew that the other person was thinking the same thing.
Oh, I knew it.
Up for an adventure?
Always.
Matt and Abby are gonna throw the ads.
So
Did your parents like Austin when you brought up Austin?
Not really.
well,
Really?
So here's the thing.
Here's the thing.
They've known me right since I was 8 years old, and I went through a little bit of a rebellious time for several years, and so
Yeah, maybe that's how some people, I guess if you have like a friend, it can develop for a while. I just don't know what close friendship between a girl and a guy looks like with these people.
Wild cards.
well, in our circle,
Yeah,
you
in
know
our
what
circles.
I mean?
Well, I mean,
our-
in secular worlds, not
Yeah,
at all.
yeah,
really,
but in our
circles,
circle.
In secular
he was a little bit
world,
wild.
Started listening to like AC/DC and Kiss on the weekends.
Yeah, well, just country music.
Just country music.
Yeah, that was enough.
oh wow, he's so wild. He listened to country music.
Wait, country music. It was like
Call the police.
considered like no, don't
Oh
listen.
yes, yeah.
100%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's what, because I thought country music was wholesome. Like my mom always told me, she was like, "Man, this is so wholesome and the
Well, beer and trucks and pretty girls in the front of the
storytelling
trucks.
is beautiful." You know.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, yeah. Pop too. I listen to pop and whatever.
Okay.
So if we want to get a
Some
little
Adam
more.
Levine, some Maroon
Pop
5 in
fan.
there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they didn't like your music choices?
Well, no, they had no
Well,
clue about my music.
no,
choices.
yeah,
they
not
didn't.
about
They
that.
didn't. They didn't know anything
He
about
was
that.
hanging with the wrong crowd, which they were. I mean, yeah, your friends now, or their lives are torn apart. The ones that you had hung out with back then.
Yeah, a lot of them.
So, and you could, yeah.
Yeah, I guess they probably talk in like friend groups and yeah, of group chat. Maybe that's it. I don't know. It's hard for me to think of like a close friendship where you can't talk one on one. And that's what I think when I think of the Duggars in the early years. Like they didn't talk to the opposite sex like one on one. But maybe that's not true. Maybe they
Well,
were allowed to
yeah,
do that.
I assume that
He just
I
And
had
don't.
they
it
just
in
did it
years
for
that
TV.
he was the rebellious one in the circle.
And I didn't really fit the
So
mold
rebellious.
of the like conservative homeschool kids,
Good
right?
for
He
Like
didn't
you.
have his shirt tucked in,
yeah, like
his belt pulled tight.
when we would go swimming, like I'd take my shirt off. Like I know that seems totally natural. Like, well, why wouldn't you? Okay, but the world in which she grew up in is like
Yeah.
you swim fully clothed. Like
Like
the
in a
boys.
dress.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the boys didn't wear dresses, but yeah,
Well, yeah, not for the boys.
yeah,
Wait,
that,
but boys
like,
wore. You had to wear a t-shirt as a boy.
T-shirt, blue jeans, no shorts.
Wait, blue jeans
In the pool?
swimming
Blue jeans, Rodriguez. That's why they swim in the damn
in the
blue
pool?
jeans
Now
and their church shirts.
Yes.
I would
they
sink.
loosened up, but yeah, we used to like my brothers would wear jeans for the longest time until probably the last
You guys did. They never showed that on the TV show.
I don't know 10 years maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's elaborate on that because I'm just like so fascinated now. So even because I knew that women had to wear like a dress or girls had to wear like a dress or something to go swimming, but I didn't know that the guys had to wear full on blue jeans and a shirt.
Hey,
So
at least they were consistent with girls and boys.
hey, at least they
Yeah.
were.
My parents, and I think that's
I think both options are likely. I think Joy wants to make her parents look less crazy, and I think it's also possible that, there's just workarounds
a
that they
lot of
had.
it. Like once I
I'm gonna hold on to that nugget of information that the Duggar boys wore blue jeans
don't know.
swimming.
I feel like they had this
So
standard
excited to
because
learn
they
that.
didn't want guys showing their thighs, and
Okay.
so they were like, okay, and girls either, and so they were like, shorts are kind of on the line, and so my brothers until like probably until I was 15, 16, they didn't wear shorts. So
Mhm.
I was probably a huge I was a huge impact on the boys, especially today,
Good, God
taking
dang.
their shirts off and wearing shorts. Like,
Oh, because you were like the one homeschool kid that
yeah,
did.
yeah. Like when I was over there, it's like swim
Austin,
time. Like
the
shirt
rebel.
comes off, and then it's like,
there
well,
were
we
times
don't
that
do
you were
that
like
here.
respectful, and you
Yeah.
were like, okay, I know their family.
Oh, they
doesn't do
like
that,
told
so
you
I'm
not
not
to
gonna
not
do
do
that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you were like the one kid that was like, he's the one that's not wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt in the pool, like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
freaking
so,
Austin.
yeah. So I was kind of that kid, right?
Okay.
So
Love to hear it. Love to hear he was
What
the
were we
rebel.
originally talking
Sounds like
about?
you were just crazy.
You were crazy, man.
maybe so.
Well, there's some
like,
other stuff.
to
I'm
you,
sure
And it's so funny because he's so conservative by every other standard.
I'd be like that guy's kind of normal.
Kinda
But
normal.
yeah, kind of normal. I'm not normal.
So
but I'm
normal,
kinda,
actually.
So yeah, he at this point he's known me for like what 15 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost easier having a clean slate, a guy walking in with a clean
like
slate.
Jeremy
and
had it easy, right?
Well, I
I'm
think
kidding.
Oh, yeah.
Not really.
I think he did. I think all the brother-in-laws.
Professional soccer
Austin's
players.
like
Yeah.
comes
compared
in,
to
swoops,
me, they had it
swoops
easy
down.
because they didn't.
Oh, don't get me started on Jeremy.
know.
I think so.
He
I
had
mean,
to count for everything since he was 8 years old.
Yes. Yeah. Like there's just a lot more dirt that can be had on somebody if you've known them for
Yeah.
since they were a child. So I think that is the answer to that is like why it's like.
How did you convince him then? Or wait, how did this even come to be? Because you're both in your own worlds, like crushing on each other, thinking about a relationship, but you haven't crossed paths yet in that way.
Well, your dad, right?
Yeah. So I just kind of kept it hush hush, and I just prayed about her for like 2 months.
Well, we see each other on a weekly
they
basis,
do.
and at this point, we started going to church together again.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Y'all
so
started
we were
coming to
seeing
the
each
church
other
we were
like
going
3
to.
times a week, at least, if not more.
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
so I just like I never like flirted with her. I just wanted to like keep it. I felt like I jumped the gun and just was immature in the previous way I pursued this other girl. And so I just was like, I'm not in a hurry. Like, I just want to really take my time on this.
Thank you to Liquid IV for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. I am a huge fan of Liquid IV. I literally can.
God, I did not know how right I would be with the ads. Not only are they doing the monetization, they're doing the regular ads. Okay, where does the Liquid IV end?
And I was praying some very specific things. So I was asking the Lord that He would
Church 3 times a week. I did it too. It's crazy. Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday.
Laid on my dad's heart, which
Youth
probably
group.
may sound weird. I don't know. I don't know y'all's background necessarily, and if I'm sounding like a complete
It is
weirdo,
crazy.
No,
maybe
not
I
at
am.
all.
So
Not at all.
so I was asking specifically that God would lay it on my dad's heart, and I just really value his opinion and his outlook, and like I just really I wanted his blessing, and yeah, so I wanted his kind of old fashioned, just want my dad's blessing, wanted her parents' blessing on the deal. And so after 2 months of praying, me and my dad are riding around in the farm truck fixing barbed wire fences. And I was like, if God hasn't put it on his heart at this point, then I've probably missed it, and I'll reevaluate. So I was like, Dad, let me ask you a question. Do you think there's anybody that I should be pursuing? Like, I've been flipping houses, whatever, kind of doing this. Am I missing something? Like, do you see something in my life, basically, that I should be doing that I'm not doing? And do you think there's a girl maybe that, I'm 22 at this point? Yeah, 22. Like, do you think there's a girl I should be pursuing? And he was like, I named off a couple. And he was like, no, none of those girls. I was like, okay, well, what do you think, Dad? And this is what he said. He said, you're going to think this is really weird, but God's really
Is he gonna say Joy? Is his dad gonna say Joy?
laid Joy Duggar on my heart, and I think you should start praying about her.
He said Joy!
And I was like, well, I have been praying about her, and I've been praying specifically that God would lay her on your heart and that you'd be praying about her. So
Wow.
Which is just so crazy because
Crazy.
I knew him, but I did not spend a lot of time with his parents at this point. Like, I saw them every once in a while. I would go out to their farm and work. They have a family
I wonder if his dad somehow picked up on his fixation
camp that his
on
family
Joy.
runs, and they have shooting ranges and stuff. So I would help with activities at the family camp or the youth camps or whatever that they do. And so
Or the fact that she was always volunteering herself because she wanted to hang out with him.
that would be a
Might
couple times a
be.
year I would see his parents every once in a while, and then sometimes at church I'd run into him. But for his dad to say that is crazy.
I obviously thought it was providential, and so
That's God.
at that point I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I think I'm getting serious about this, and so I went and talked with her dad, and him and I. This is in our circles. Obviously, if you're pursuing the girl, then the dad kind of
Wednesday service was the bane
calls
of
the
my
shots,
existence.
and he may be totally hands off, or he may make you jump through a bunch of hoops. If the girl
It was at that point in the week, you just wanted to chill and relax. You still have 2 days left, but you got to go to church. And it was always after school, after work,
wants
everything.
to follow her dad and have him involved in it, right? She could kind of rebel and just go off and do her own thing. But if she wants her dad's blessing and whatever, in the circle, it's kind of like the dad gets to call the shots.
Yeah.
And so we started talking for a couple of months.
Were you nervous for this conversation?
I was nervous, but I had such a confidence that this is what I was supposed to be doing.
Okay.
It was kind of like, all right, Jim Bob, when are you going to get on board? Because, I know where I'm heading. So the quicker.
Was it clear at that time that you guys were both interested in each other, but the
No.
courting hadn't started?
No.
Oh, you both didn't know that you both
No.
liked each other.
No.
That's so
So
interesting.
I'm talking to Jim Bob for probably a month and a half, and then he finally is like, "Hey, I probably should
That's so crazy. That's such a crazy way to approach dating. He is bugging her dad for a month and a half
tell you that Joy actually
without knowing
really
she
likes
likes.
you, and
He didn't tell
she's
you for
really
how long, but yeah, he said basically it goes both ways.
yeah.
What was this conversation like? Were you calling him on the phone?
Did you even
having
know this was
a
going
phone
on?
call
No,
every
I
day?
hadn't-
No, I was going
had
over
no
there.
idea that this
I
was going on.
over
That's
at the house.
Was
over
this
at the
once
big
a
house.
week?
Once a week. Yeah,
Okay.
once a week
They
we
had
were
a
meeting.
setup time. I had no idea.
Was he more on the strict side, or is this pretty typical?
Well, I was
Yeah, I feel like Austin was probably throwing off some vibes
still,
at some
I was
point.
just 18.
Okay.
So at this point, I think it wasn't like some of my other sisters that had gotten married in their early 20s or whatever.
Yeah.
He knew where I was, so I don't think he wanted to tell me anything until he knew that something might be happening.
Really young.
Okay.
Just for my heart's sake.
Or she
Yeah.
did.
And so, yeah, I didn't know until one night he called me. My dad was like, "Hey, Joy, I want to talk to you." And he's like, "I just wanted to let you know that Austin has come and asked if he can get to know you, like more than a friend." And
More
I
than
just
a
remember
friend.
like, are you kidding me?
What would the other reason be? They can't be anything else in their
Or are
culture.
you serious? Like what? Like I didn't know if he was joking with me, and I just started bawling because this had been 4 years at this point that I had like been talking about him, talking to my sisters about him, like I had the
Watching
biggest
me
crush.
go pursue other girls.
Yeah, and like trying to be supportive of him. Yeah, anyways, and so I just remember I was so excited, but also at that point I was like, wait, do I want this to happen?
It's really just occurred to me how the system, like, how would you not think it was like divinely planned for you to be with this person with this system? Like, it just is set up that way to make it feel like it's all divine intervention because these guys don't get to talk to each other and tell each other that they like each other. It all has to go through the parents, and it makes it seem like it's just, oh, magically these two just started liking each other and got like, how would you not think it was something supernatural?
I don't know if I want to marry this guy or like go in courtship to get married eventually. And so
As opposed to the parents who probably see evidence of these two like really, really liking each other and just know it's a
all the
crush, you know?
emotions.
That must have been
That's
really
crazy.
hard too to see him pursue another girl when you've been crushing on him for what at that point 3 years was
Yeah,
it?
it was hard, but at the same time, I think we had that friendship that I wanted what was best for him, and so if that's what's best for him, I want that. But yeah, it was definitely hard.
I had no clue that she had interest in me. And I'm not like completely oblivious. Like, you know what I mean? Like some guys like I wasn't completely oblivious, but she did a really good job of not flirting
Well, I
with
didn't
me.
want to make it weird.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make our friendship weird, and so I just tried to treat you like I would any
It
other
is
guy.
gross.
Yeah.
Did you have
Oh, Joy's got
I
the
learned
dogs
from
out.
talking with Ginger and Jeremy that there's kind of like a checklist of things that Jim Bob runs you through. When did that meeting happen? Tell me about that meeting with Jim Bob.
That was pretty early on in our conversations where he gave me that list and wanted me to fill it out. And
Yeah, because you were rebellious and listened to country music.
man, I think the questions in the list, a lot of them were good. Just figuring out where somebody is
Criticize Jim Bob.
with their religious beliefs and finances and family planning and just different stuff like that. And so maybe some of it really doesn't, like the father-in-law, like maybe not any of his business, but I mean, there's like, have you ever, been arrested? Have you ever whatever? And so he knew all that, or, you know what I mean? Like he knew a lot of that kind of stuff. So
had you been arrested before?
No.
Oh wow.
Still to this day, I haven't.
Still to this
That's
day.
awesome.
You've made it 30 years.
I've made it 30 years. Hey, that's pretty
Good for you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't been caught. No, I'm just kidding.
Matt, you haven't been arrested either. The way you're like,
They joke about this like that ever happened. Well, it did happen to one of Joy's brothers.
It kind of makes it seem like,
I've
oh,
had
wow,
3 speeding tickets.
Okay.
Any speeding tickets?
I want to be more bold and different. Like, not really having to follow
Matt and
trends.
Abby, come
Doing
on,
what feels
man.
like me, like that's what I stand.
Man, I have had one
Hold on, let's look at this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 more ad breaks before this is
ticket
over.
for an improper display of a license plate.
Brutal.
So it's not a speeding ticket.
Yes, not a speeding ticket.
Okay.
I do get pulled over for speeding.
Sorry to cut you off. That was
Yeah,
my
we veered
ADHD
off.
showing. But back to the question
Well, me too.
there though.
Yes, I did fill out one.
But I'm cutting people off all the time.
Yeah, submitted it to him. That was pretty early in our conversations, if I remember. So
I want to know how many men have been disqualified based on this questionnaire that your dad has issued.
See, that's where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that's which we've talked about this, and I think my parents have said too. Like they've said, we're gonna have these, the way we parent, but we want to be kind of a stepping stool for y'all, and y'all figure out do it better than us is what they've told
I feel like none have been rejected.
us. And so I feel like
If the show is to be believed.
that's one thing that I'm like, I appreciate the idea behind it. I think I would tweak it some because, like he said, any guy can come in and be like, oh, I know, like, especially because we grew up on TV. People know, like, our standards are out there, what we allow, what we don't allow, like or at least what dad allows and doesn't allow. And so I feel like any guy could have come in and filled out the questionnaire and answered all the right questions and been like, oh, yeah, you're good to go. Like, you filled it all out. You know what to say. You know what not to say. So,
I think that's a good. Imagine how many guys reached out to the family, whatever, whether it was the girls or Jim Bob or whatever, to date his daughters. Like,
That's true.
I don't even know what the number is. Hundreds of hundreds of guys.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually just going through, since we moved a couple weeks ago, I was going through all my boxes, and I had my keepsake boxes, and I had letters in there from when I was like 16, 17. Guys from like jail or guys from just random
jail writing you letters.
Yeah. And my mom obviously would read them first because she's like, this is weird, but then we would all laugh about it. But like guys asking to court me, and like one guy like
from jail.
I'm sure his mom wrote it, but it was like cursive handwriting and like this whole long letter about
guys can do cursive.
How like good he is, an option for me, and God's telling him that I should marry him, all this kind of stuff.
So
wait, hold up, tell me more about.
In this fundie sphere, it probably is like a Jill Rodriguez writing a letter.
Like, what's the most unique one you've had? Because you said someone wrote you from jail, like they were literally in jail.
So I only have one from jail, and it was like it had a picture.
How many do you have?
No, but some of my older sisters, they have multiple, and like. These guys from prison would be watching and then write letters, and you would see like so and so yada yada correctional facility.
Yeah, from the Florida State Penitentiary with their number.
Yeah, they would ask to like be your pen pal if they didn't ask to marry you. But yeah, some of my sisters have quite a few.
Did they ask for your hand in?
There could be some good guys in the Florida State Penitentiary.
I mean, they're probably like so down bad that they're just like,
the guy that wrote me, I think, was asking just to be a pen pal.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure
At
Jana
16,
has a couple that were like, I want to marry you, or you're my forever like soulmate, like that kind of stuff.
Dang.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is wild. I would have never thought of that.
And back then, like when it first started, it was weird. But then back then, it was like, oh, you got another one. Like it was just
that is
somewhat
wild.
normal.
It is like making me think how Jim Bob and Michelle really opened up all of their children, especially their minor children, to like anybody. They accepted letters from anybody, and they also like there's a few stories where they let people stay in their house and things like that. I think they were a little, I don't know.
Somewhat normal.
It's surprising to hear they let their daughters read letters from jail.
Did you ever entertain a conversation with this guy who had very nice cursive handwriting and wrote you?
No, I didn't write him back. Is that bad? That's not bad.
Did you ever write anybody back?
No.
Anybody back? No.
No.
You got a ton of them.
I was a really bad pen pal. I did not enjoy book reading or writing. So even the people I loved, I would just email them back.
Just email them back. Yeah. That's wild. I didn't realize how many people, like men, were like.
Oh, that's so true. Now Josh is the crappy person from wherever he is, Seago Prison Penitentiary.
Yeah.
Anywhere we went. I went on.
Funny to hear her talk shit about people in prison.
Quite a few different vacations and just different stuff with the family, even as a single guy, before I was even interested in her. And like literally everywhere we went, guys are approaching Jim Bob.
So weird for their standards. So weird to know that they let that happen.
Can I talk to your daughter? Or like, if we went on a vacation somewhere, it was crazy. So I think it was kind of a vetting process that he had. I don't
know. Is there anything similar for the guys, like for the sons? Or is he just expecting the daughter?
Of course there isn't.
Not really. Yeah, normally the daughter's dad would, however, like whatever her rules are normally is whatever all the rules would be.
Huh.
So.
Interesting. So your dad wasn't as involved in your brother's courtship as much as
he didn't care about.
Been very different. Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't care about that.
So it depends. I mean, I think they obviously have they have like some ground rules, like this is what we don't want y'all to do. But I think anything past.
Don't get someone pregnant. No number 2.
Past that, like any standards, any whatever lines not to cross would be set by the girl's parents. So my brothers are pretty there's a wide variety of how their relationships went.
Thank you to Article for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. I cannot tell you how much joy it brings me to come.
God, with the built-in ads and then the AdSense ads, that's like at least 13. Well, what are we at? 12. We count the
Family on
feature
TV,
ads.
did that intimidate you, knowing how big the stakes were? Like, you didn't want to be the talking point on the next TV episode, like, yeah, that Austin guy really sucks. Like, he broke Joy's heart. And now
yeah, very negligent. I feel like the boys that when they got to the point where they could like dress themselves, they're just like, okay,
now we should cancel him. Like, did that freak you out?
It did, and I think that because this is obviously when the show is still blown and going, right? So I think that's why Jim Bob wanted to have a month and a half relationship with me, right? Before to see how real it is, and just, you know what I mean? Because I
don't want to talk about how smart Jim Bob is, if I'm being honest. I burped in the middle of saying that.
To introduce a guy onto your family's TV show, and then next season or next episode he's gone. Like,
he didn't care about the continuity. He cared about like his contracts with TLC and how much money he was
just
going to
don't
make.
want that constant drama of news. Well, what happened to such and such and this and that?
That's not true.
It's messy.
And so I don't blame him at all for wanting to, like, the guys that came, keep like, let's nail it down. We keep everything quiet. Like, we want to make sure between me and him, like, this is really something that potentially is going to happen before anybody else finds out about it.
I mean, we didn't have anything similar really to a courtship at all, but like from an outside perspective, I can look at that and be like, it's really cool that you had someone that was not like emotional.
Please don't blow gas up their ass about courtships.
At all about the decision, really. Like, I mean, granted, he was your father, so like he's biased and like wants to take care of you, but like to be like, okay, well, even just like the basic stuff is like, oh well, you want multiple children, or like she doesn't, like, I don't know, just to like look at it in a
she can communicate that. Women can actually communicate that without their father doing
black
it
and white aspect. Like, that is kind of nice.
Yeah, did you
like
did
anything
you like
that's like gonna be a deal breaker, it's like already out, like it's like, oh well, we're not gonna mess with your heart and emotions.
Well, I'm curious, since you guys have opened up about not having your kids go through the same courtship process you went through, are you thankful for it? Like, do you wish there's things you could change about how the process went for you, or do you think it was the best thing that you guys needed at the time?
I am a big believer in it's not what happens to you, it's how you like respond to it. And so I feel like we would not be the same people that we are if in any life circumstances that happens to us, it's made us into the people that we are. And so we can't change that. And so I mean, there's really like not any, I mean, I'm sure you can chime in on this too, but for me, I don't think that there's anything else that I would change, because all of those things, yes, there were things that were hard about it that I'm like, I'm not going to do that, but I wouldn't change it because I've grown from that, I've learned from it, and I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do?
You wouldn't change it, but you don't want the same experience for your children?
I'm going to do different with my kids. What am I going to do the same? Like, or what can I tweak from this? And so, yeah, there are definitely things that we will change, but I'm not upset about it at all.
And obviously you can't change the past, but at the time, did it feel too legalistic? Like, did it feel like weird that you needed to have a third person with you guys at all times, no matter what? Did that infringe on your connection at all?
Not for me anyways, because I guess having a chaperone with us, or all the standards that we had, that was all I ever knew. And so I knew once we end the courtship, these are the standards that we're going to have. And I don't know about for you, but for me, that was, and obviously, I think once we got into engagement, I was like, okay, we could let up a little bit. Like, this is a little bit much, but there were.
Oh, Joy wanted to jump in those shorts during their engagement.
Like, the little brother or the older brother that would be like, hey, Daddy, they're side hugging for too long. And I'm like, oh my word.
Was that a thing? Did you guys side hug for too long?
Oh, I mean, yeah.
Are there rules for that?
I totaled my truck.
Yeah.
They did everything for too long.
I totaled my truck.
Okay, yeah.
And
this is one of the scenarios.
Too long.
Yeah.
Austin was coming from his camp. I was in front of him in my own car.
My parents' house.
Okay, yeah. So his parents' house. We were all headed back home. I was in my car. He was in his car, and I'm driving before him. So I'm driving, and I'm probably like 5 minutes ahead of you, and he gets in a wreck and totals his truck.
And Doug.
You'll be back. Emus can't help people.
And so
Man, Abby, you're killing
Meth
me
head
here.
ran me off the came in a blind curve in my lane, and it was hit the car or take the ditch. And I was in a 3/4 ton diesel. I would have killed whoever was in the car.
Yeah. Oh my
so I took the ditch.
So it was like, it
totaled
was
my truck.
bad. Like, he could have died.
Wow.
And so he calls me, and I'm like, okay, I'll turn around. I call my dad, and I'm like, hey, can I go over there?
Is this going to be a situation where he almost died and she gets in trouble for hugging him too long? Is that what this is going to be?
And so, because I want to respect the rules at this point. Like, we're not.
Okay, that's crazy in and of itself that you're like, hey, the guy I'm talking to almost died. Is it okay if I go see if he's okay?
Without anybody, like a chaperone.
But you're, what, 19 at this point?
Yeah.
An adult.
Yeah, right? No, 18 still. Right?
Yeah.
Still technically an adult.
I hadn't probably turned 19 yet. Maybe 19.
I don't know.
Anyway.
But you're engaged.
Yeah.
No.
Not at this point, are we?
Not quite.
Not
Okay.
quite.
Never mind, okay.
Almost.
We were waiting.
We knew that we were going to get married, but we weren't engaged yet.
That's so fascinating to me for you as a 19-year-old to call to ask your dad's permission. Like, when I was 19, I was like, I'm gone.
By fascinating, he means stupid.
See you guys.
But
Peace.
I was very much, I didn't want to rock the boat, and I never felt the need to.
Mhm.
I always wanted to be respectful to my parents, and I didn't, like, I knew their heart behind it wasn't to hurt me, I guess. And so for me, I knew that my.
Okay, but how? Okay, I need to stop pausing. But like, how much? Like, why would they get if they really? If it wasn't about legalistic and rules and stuff, why would they care that you went to go see somebody who almost died just because you're like that's
Dad would
just
prefer me to call him.
crazy.
So I call him, and he was like, hey, I'll head over that way. You can go. I don't know if I went ahead. Did I go ahead and go? I think I did.
You went on to town.
I did. I waited for him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because I came in the wrecker. So I went to town and then rode back with my dad. So I run up, give him a big hug, whatever. The
God
rest of the
forbid.
time, I'm holding on to his arm, which at this point we weren't holding hands yet.
Oh.
We were
Because he
corny.
almost died.
Yeah, but I'm
Literally.
so, like, I'm crying, holding his arm for probably 10-15 minutes. Well, my brother that comes with my dad is like, Pops, Joy has been holding on to Austin's arm this whole time, and they're
What a little shit. I wonder who
they're not
that
supposed to
was.
even be holding hands. And Pops looks back, kind of like annoyed.
I'm like, can I speak with you in the back for a minute? That's what I'm thinking.
Pops looks back and he's like, Joy, you should probably let go of his arm. And I'm like, look at my brother like so
He sides with the little shit.
annoyed. But I was like, whatever, it's fine. So
He almost
anyway,
died.
like, just scenarios like that where I'm like,
It's not the
can
end of
you-
the world.
You don't have to follow the book on everything.
It
Like, you
isn't
know
the
my
end
heart
of the
behind
world.
it.
Yeah.
It's not to get away with stuff. Like, I genuinely was worried about his safety and like, is he okay?
And for you though, had you like done this process before? Like the previous girl, did you guys ever hold hands, or was like
No,
was
we-
this whole courting thing completely new to you?
Yeah, so we didn't get that far with the other girl. My sister had gotten married like a year before this, and they didn't have chaperones. My dad's theory is like, if I can't trust you with my daughter right now, then why would I trust you
Yeah.
Amen.
with her being her husband and
Amen.
whatever. And so I was around it. Like that was the group, that the homeschool group, whatever, that we were around was of that mindset, but my family wasn't necessarily like that. We never had conversations, not one time, of, these are the rules, these are what you can do, these are what you can't do. But I think, Dad I still knew what his wishes were, like in different scenarios, and I would have tried to honor that. I wanted his blessing.
I think you knew coming in though to our
Oh, I
family
did.
that is
Oh,
what
I did.
that's just what is expected.
Yeah.
So I think it wasn't like, oh my goodness, what is this?
Yeah, I think if you're a guy and, you're like, well, that's
Yeah, they think this is so endearing. It's so weird.
stupid and I'm not going to
It's
do
so
that.
weird.
Okay, well, you're never going to marry a Duggar.
Yeah.
And if you're okay with that, then that's fine. So there's certain things that, like, if you want to go through this process, these are the things you have to do. And I knew that going into it, and it was
Never gonna marry a Duggar. It sounds like a I don't know, like a Marine Corps like training
hard
thing.
pill to
Like You want to marry a Duggar, you got to go through, you know, the
swallow,
ringer.
like knowing all that. Not just that, but the show and just everything that goes with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew what I was getting myself into.
I think like the outside looking in, like I'm thinking about our experience, like I felt very hands-on in like choosing my husband. Like at what point, like if your dad's like, oh, like here's this guy like that's interested, he's passed my test. Like at what point are you like, I approve of this, or is it kind of just like this is moving forward before, you know what I mean?
No, yeah, my parents, at least from my experience for me, and I had talked to some of my other sisters too, but my dad and my mom would always, if a guy come talk to him, hey, are you interested in this? And if the girl said no way but no, like they would say no.
That's the end.
Yeah,
okay.
that's the end of it. Or if they said yes, then they would kind of move on slowly. If my parents had any cautions, they would talk to us about it. They wouldn't just cut it off. So from my experience, that never was happened.
You had to say. I mean, you could have.
Oh yeah,
yes
yeah,
or no,
I definitely
or,
had to say.
Yeah.
Would you say that there was like a feeling of like safety or like comfort in knowing that like
See, a lot of people do not think that's true. I would say a lot of people on Reddit and even, I mean, a lot of people do not think that they think Jim Bob arranged the marriages.
there was such a high standard for, you know, the guys that entered your life?
Yeah, I think so, and I guess I think there's a balance, obviously, and I pray that we are balanced with our kids. I know that I had talked to another friend of mine that she was like, I just wish that my dad even cared who I dated. She's like, I just wish that he would even talk to my boyfriend before, you know, things move forward, and not just, hey, can I marry your daughter?
Okay, but there's a happy medium. There's a happy medium. Like my dad cared who I married, but I didn't have people observing me even when I was younger constantly, like what I was
You know,
doing.
she's like, I wish he would have the even just want to get to know my future husband possibly. And so I think after
Yeah, and it's that her dad was uninvolved in a bad way and your dad was over involved in a
hearing
bad
that,
way.
I told my dad, I was like, thank you for even being concerned and
Thank
being
you for being
interested.
over
And
involved.
I think there could be a balance, but I don't know. I guess I always saw the positive side of it.
Yeah.
For me personally.
I think it's really cool that you mentioned
You saw the positive side, but you are not doing that for
earlier
your
that
own
your parents
children.
said, like,
I just think it's so interesting how all of these girls in particular are always on a positive PR campaign for Michelle and Jim Bob, but they choose to parent in almost the opposite way in a lot of ways. So it's like, just be honest. Like I feels like they feel like they have to be on a positive campaign for Jim Bob in particular, and it's annoying to me. Just say that you didn't like it.
like here's like we did the best we can but do better, like see, like basically tweak what you didn't like in this, like in our parenting. I think that's really, really humble, and I don't think a lot of parents have that posture. I can only hope that we would have that posture of their children of like, we're doing everything we can, but like I know there's areas that we can improve, and like you make it better.
Yeah.
I took a look at your guys' YouTube channel, and it was kind of cool seeing you guys make these family vlogs and these posts and just kind of open up about your story from your perspective, and you're the one shaping the narrative, not you know, a TV network that has certain things they want. Like it was just interesting to see everything from your perspective. And something you opened up about in, I think it was a Q&A, you mentioned reading both of your sisters' books, Ginger's book and Jill's book, and you mentioned something that really made me curious. You said that, you know, talking to them, reading their books, all of that had rocked your world. And I wanted to know what you meant by that.
Okay, well, I'll probably get emotional because I always get emotional about this kind of stuff. So let's just rewind. So with Gunner, I had a super hard postpartum, and it was like the darkest time of my life. Anyway, but it was really
I think I just won my taxes.
Oh yeah?
I just switched from TurboTax to H&R Block. It was so easy.
They put an ad
I don't
break
have to go
there.
back through-
I mean, maybe they don't place the ad breaks. I don't know. I've never had to do that on YouTube, but
it was really good, but it was super hard. And so I feel like I just went through this with the hormone change. You know how it is.
Totally.
The hormones were
that's postpartum depression. My babe, my dude, my girl.
super hard. And so you're going through postpartum, and then I felt like my family was just falling apart. And then a lot
not you and me.
not you and us, but just my yeah, my siblings and my parents and all this stuff was super hard at that time. And so I came to a point where I was just like, what is even real? What do I believe? Like all this stuff. Sorry. Anyway.
Take a break.
Yeah, we can take as much time as you want.
Do you have tissue? Sorry.
Totally.
Well, that makes me so sad to hear that she was dealing with postpartum when all of that stuff was going down.
You can just take the whole box.
Okay, yeah, I probably need it.
Such a hard. That's got to make it just 800 million times worse.
I came to this point in my life where I was just like, okay, and I think Austin had gone through this earlier when he like kind of went through rebellion and was like, okay, what am I going to believe for myself? What am I going to, and he figured that out a lot earlier than I did. But I feel like it was good, and I can see now looking back, how much God grew me in that season. But I do feel like Ginger's book specifically was talking about just your faith in God and taking it from more of like, what can I do? But really, we grew up with so many standards, and I was great at keeping all of these standards. And my parents never preached one time that it was, you do all these things and then God will accept you. But
that is not true.
That's how I took it personally. And
that's how everybody took it, babe, because that's what they're saying. They're saying you have to do these things to be a good Christian, and whether they say that explicitly or not, that is what they set it up to be. Like, you have to wear skirts. That's what we believe the Bible says, and if you don't do that, you are not being a good Christian. So to say like that's the way I took it, even though they didn't say that, is really letting them off the hook in a way that they should not be let off. Like, they do not deserve to be let off the hook that, because that's the insinuation behind it all, is that you're not a good Christian if you don't do XYZ, etc., etc.
My whole life I was like doing all these things, and my whole Christianity.
And that's what Ginger, to my understanding, tackles in her book. Like, to say like she went from a legalistic type of Christianity that her parents introduced her to a more like, I just want to work on a relationship with God kind of thing, even though she still is in a very legalistic thing, but that's the thing to tackle at another time. But
it was always a checklist. I got to read my Bible, check. I got to pray, check. Like all these things. And so I feel like it all came just crumbling down when postpartum, my family had a lot of struggles at that time, and then these books come out. I had to work through these things that I'd always felt like I'm never going to question God. Like I'm never going to do that. It was almost prideful of me to say like, oh, I'm never going to get to this point in my life where I will. And then I got to that point, and God's like, yeah, you're not perfect, and you don't have it all together, and your world's falling apart, and so what are you going to do about it?
Well, and what's like even more annoying about not what she's saying, but like that was also implanted in her head that like you're a bad person if you question God. Like that whole corner of Christianity is like not questioning God, doing what you think the Bible says, particularly the KGB. Like the Rodriguezes are the exact same way. Like, we do exactly what we think it says, but everybody interprets it differently. So it's like,
and so
I don't blame her for that being like affecting you in a negative way.
It was probably, that was a super hard time for us, just because I was out of it, and like
you were
mentally
depressed.
I just couldn't handle a lot. It was probably
you had depression.
Probably a good 6, 7, 8, 9 months of I just had a hard time getting out of bed, and had a hard time just doing what I need to do.
That's depression.
And then spiritually on top of that, it was super hard. And so I feel like Ginger's book, I listened to it, and I've talked to her a lot, and
oh, Matt, Natty.
Auto insurance all seems the same until it's time to use it. With USAA, it's easy to file claims, schedule repairs, and access.
I was locked in.
I had a lot of really good counselors in my life, and I went and actually saw a counselor for these issues, and that was really
God, I hope it was one
good.
qualified.
And just working through, and he really encouraged me. He kept saying, don't just ask all these questions and not search for answers. He was like, if you have these big questions of, is God real, or
That's
does
good
God care about me,
advice.
or bigger doctrinal questions, he's like, you need to be proactive and search those out, because he's like, I want you to know for yourself. I'm not going to. And I really appreciate that about Austin, because I know not everybody has such a support.
That is good advice, but I wonder if he would be okay if you came to a conclusion that wasn't, God is real and he's the God I've always thought he was.
Husband, but he never made me feel like, I can't believe you're going through this, and I can't believe you're questioning God. It was just, he was constantly there supporting me, wanting me to grow, become a better person, and encouraging me to search
That's
stuff
good
out
at
for
least
myself.
that he
And
was
so,
okay with that.
anyway, the long answer to that question is, I think it really helped me spiritually, taking my faith from a lot of fear-based, that's similar to Ginger's, a lot of fear-based, to searching things out for myself, and knowing that God loves me no matter what I do or what I don't do, and I feel like it's a journey, and I'm still searching things out, but I searched in the Word, I asked God, I was praying, and I feel like God gave me so many areas of just peace and answering questions in that dark season.
Thank you to Lumi for sponsoring this portion of today's episode.
Do you smell? Because
I swear to God, the amount of ads these people squeezed into this thing. I know I say it every single time an ad pops up, but I'm very bitter about it. That I'm a therapist who has worked with moms with PPD. It's such a tough thing for women to go through, especially fundie women where being a mom is the highest calling in their life's purpose. Yeah, I think that's like gotta be so
We've kind of created this
difficult,
own.
especially because this like corner of Christianity generally does not believe in depression. I'm glad that she acknowledged it was postpartum depression and not, well, she did, I don't think she ever said depression, but everything she said points to depression. So I'm glad she acknowledged that that was what she was going through. And it's the, I'm glad she saw a counselor. I hope it wasn't just a church counselor, like an unaccredited or unlicensed counselor. I think that a licensed counselor would help more, but it's just, I, at least she's in that place where she can do that. There are so many people who are in that corner of Christianity who don't even feel like postpartum depression is real and you can like think your way out of it, and et cetera, or talking to a pastor is the most you can do. And there's a lot of people who actually get criticized for, if they couldn't get out of bed, like Joy said, they would be looked at as a bad mom. So for her sake, at least, I'm glad she can do that.
Little bubble. And so we try really hard not to read a lot of comments and to search news. We know it's out there, but we can't control that. But we can control what we let in to our minds, our family, and then how it affects us. So we really try to keep a lid on just not letting so much bad into our minds and consuming our thoughts. And there's a balance, right? Because you don't want to be naive to everything that's going on. But like for instance, I cannot look at comments on Instagram or on any social media. I can't handle it. It makes me so mad.
Yeah.
And I want to get on there and start being a keyboard Karen. And
Keyboard Karen.
That's like Abby's mom.
So I
Don't
can't.
even bring.
I can see Abby's mom being a keyboard Karen.
That's my mom. She'll call me. She'll be like,
yeah.
"Can you believe what they're saying about you?" I'm like, "Mom, I don't even want to know, and don't you get on there and say nothing."
Yeah. Didn't she at one point like create under another name?
My dad did. I think it was. I think it was my dad.
You're like,
I think a lot of people in this family, in this community, do
We're
things
gonna
like
have this
that.
big comeback to
Yeah,
like just so they could come back at certain comments. I'm like, how do you even know how to do that?
It's literally a waste. It's a
Girl,
waste
you know how to
trying
do that.
to rebuttal people that
Make it
literally have
bigger.
nothing better to do than to sit there and criticize and whatever. It's a complete waste of your time. I think
It is a waste of your time when you get as many comments as because they have time to waste. They have legitimate criticisms.
there may be somebody that you could respond to, and maybe they would be
But
like,
yeah,
"Oh,
how do
well,
you
you're
know?
right. Maybe I shouldn't have said that." But that's not been our experience. I think one time we had a lady do that where we commented back, and then she direct messaged us and was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that."
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
but that's not the norm, and so we have to limit what we let into our lives as far as that's concerned. And then
He's really good about that. I'm not.
well,
Like I'll be like, okay, I won't read the comments. I know it affects me.
and she does.
2
And then
hours
I
later,
do
you're
it.
on your
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm like, get off your phone, stop! It's poison. It's you know.
Yeah, it really is. It's
It's not good for
on
you,
the bigger scheme, like
regardless
for
of
our
who you are.
family, it's hard. But then if it's bigger family stuff, like I say bigger family, that's like my parents and all of my siblings. I think it is even it's on a whole nother level. It's just because
I would like to know how you and your siblings feel about being put on this like this stage without any like consent involved. Like you and your siblings are all subject to all these comments and messages and stuff, and it's all because your dad in particular really fought for you to be on that stupid TV show for so long. So I'd like to know how you feel
they
about that, but
yeah, everything you do,
I feel like
you
they're
take a
not going to
picture
talk
and you're
about that.
not smiling all the way. Oh, Joy's whatever.
She's miserable. She's gonna
Yeah.
divorce Austin.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's just
like,
constantly
They do
jumping
do
to
that.
conclusions, and it is difficult.
well, the other thing I think that's really helped us is we have a really close group of
Yes.
friends at church.
I don't know that she went to all of Josh's hearings. I think that's my husband. I know I think they went to some. I know I remember seeing Austin there at a few.
And so we just like we don't have to search for that community and that camaraderie. And so and our friends, they don't they could care less who we are.
Yeah.
And so I think most of them don't even know what's going on. Like they don't know what
I'm gonna mute my mic real quick, guys. I'm gonna let my dog in because I hear him scratching at the door.
the hot topic is in the family or whatever. And so surrounding ourselves with those kind of people who are just genuine. We just have genuine relationships. It's, I think that's really helped us.
And
That's so good.
I think that's really cool that you have like those people that are like disconnected from that world. But then sometimes can it feel lonely if it's like, okay, like I am, public in this like so like
Oh, yeah, 'cause
sometimes
they
I can
can't
feel
relate.
isolating.
Yeah.
I for me personally, no, because my best friend is Carlin Bates. I don't know, Stewart. Anyway, so I feel like their family had 19 kids as well. Like we grew up together, and we're both number 9 in the lineup.
Oh wow.
They have 19 kids, right?
And they had a TV show. Like it's a
Okay.
lot of it is
Carlin
similar,
mentioned.
and so
I didn't mute my mic.
and
That's
I have my
crazy.
I have my siblings too.
Yeah.
And so I feel like for me, it's not as isolating because I have some people that I know that have some similar like background and know kind of what we're going through.
I don't. I've got Jeremy. I'll text Jeremy.
got
He's be
Jeremy.
like, bro, that's crazy. Stay off the internet. It's wild. Like,
Who's coming in the driveway?
God, this is
My
another
daughter
goddamn
is being
ad.
treated for leukemia.
What does the media
Mid wiping mud off my dog. I gotta.
get wrong about your
Damn
family?
you, Matt
The one
Nabby.
thing that comes to my mind that irks me is people are always saying, "Oh, well, your page is controlled by your dad, and your YouTube is controlled by your dad," and that kind of stuff. I'm like, we are our own family, and I can say that, but people are obviously going to believe what they believe, like, and so.
Well, I'll be honest with you guys, and I feel like I've let headlines construe my view of things too, because I was looking at your YouTube channel and I saw like this really sweet vlog of your son's birthday party, and it was like you guys and your both your parents were there, and it just seemed like everyone was having such a genuine good time. But in my head, because of headlines that I've seen about your family, I almost thought like, I don't know, maybe you're not talking to your parents. Maybe you guys don't have a relationship. I have no idea. But then seeing you in this YouTube video just have a genuine, fun birthday party together, it really changed my perspective.
Yeah, I think that's just, it's reality. That's how it is. So
that's kind of the point of our YouTube. Like one of them is to if you want to know what's going on, come and watch our YouTube. Don't look at TMZ or In Touch or whatever. Like
running back to do the ad made me out of breath. They don't do YouTube anymore, though. I saw Joy does not do the YouTube videos anymore.
Watch what we're putting out there.
So now I only have TMZ.
Yeah, people all the time. Oh, well, who's in the feud now? And then, they'll have all their speculations, and then we'll post a video or something. They're like, oh, well, I guess that wasn't true. And then they write something up the next day. So
that's one thing I agree with them on, though, is that to decide they have a feud with somebody based on Instagram pictures or, whatever. And we're almost getting to the point where we might stop, but there's over half an hour left. I don't know. We'll see. I'll give it like a couple more minutes.
In the media, like when there's a story about, Ben and Jess are fighting, or Jessa doesn't look happy, or Joy, gave Austin, whatever in this picture, she's gonna divorce him. That stuff is just not even accurate. And then whatever, if there's some other headline of, I think maybe one of the siblings is getting married or something. Like, yeah, sometimes they get it right. Sometimes it's like, okay, who told the media? Like, who told the media Jana's fixing to get married or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
And so there is bits of like, how did that get out?
Wait, did that happen with Jana? Like when she was getting married, did someone like leak to the media that she was getting married before?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was it? Do you guys know who the whistleblower was?
We have our suspicions.
Was it from within the family or outside?
No, it's outside the family.
I have to know. I want to know so bad.
Outside the family.
Do they get paid for that information?
I'm sure somebody
I would think
does.
so.
I don't know.
That's such a weird world to live in, where you're like, I have to. Yeah.
It's somebody that had a invitation and they were very.
Or got a picture of one.
Or got a picture of an invitation.
I don't know if anybody has any opinions on whether we stop now and do a part 2 or continue. Let me know. Otherwise, maybe in a few minutes I might go ahead and we'll finish it off tomorrow or
So
whatever works.
Yeah, and then leaked it. Yeah. So
did they like leak the location and the date and everything?
Yeah.
That's so wrong.
It
like
is.
It's one thing to leak that Jana's getting married, but then to leak her wedding venue.
Or maybe I should
they actually did that.
I don't know.
And so
that's so sad.
So we're just regular people, right?
Yeah,
like we don't have security that follows. Like
you're not Kim Kardashian with like 10 security guards around you at all times.
But you
Christian
have to think like
Kardashian.
there are crazies. There are crazies.
People that hate our family and.
Okay, so for instance, 3 weeks ago, we got a loud knock on the door at 11:30 at night, and it's Domino's, and they said we got an order for Joy Duggar.
And a Duggar.
Okay, well
not Forsyth, Duggar.
That immediately tells me, all right, somebody's, and I was like, all right, is it paid for? They're like, nope. And I said, okay, was there a message? Or you got a number? Who ordered this? They're like, yeah, the message just says this is for Joy and Duggar, and knock really loud at the door at 11:30 at night. So
that's so messed up.
Who at Domino's was like, yeah, this checks out, knock really loud? I guess maybe if someone's not by the door.
So with that kind of stuff, like.
And she felt bad. She was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, I felt bad. I was like, I could pay for the pizza, but she's like, I'll just take it.
Dude, I did DoorDash for a while, and when people said things like that, where like knock super loud on the door, or do something crazy, like someone once asked me to throw rocks at the window if they didn't have a good reason underneath, like, oh, somebody's hard of hearing or whatever. Like, if you knew who these people were, Don't do it. I wouldn't do it. I did, unless people had a good reasoning behind it. I never did it because it felt like a prank.
Take it back to the store. Don't worry.
You're
about
so
it.
sweet.
But I'm like,
yeah, you're too
well,
sweet.
it happened all the time to my family, like multiple times. People would deliver like stacks of pizza and not pay for it, and so then my parents would just pay for it.
People would just show up at the door,
Yeah.
babe. People would just like
Oh yeah,
come
they'd drive
hop
down
over
our
the fence,
driveway.
knock on the door, and so
Yeah.
you know when something like that gets leaked, like Jana's wedding, it's like,
Yeah.
is some crazy gonna come up here and interrupt the whole thing, or media, or
Yeah, sometimes, and so I don't know if it's in all areas, but you can do like pay at the door, especially back in the day. People pay with cash at the door. I'm assuming
You
it's
know
For
what I
something
all
mean?
of
like
our
that.
weddings, like while we were filming, the film crew would provide security
But I feel like if you know this family is on a reality TV show and somebody who's likely to get harassed, like maybe communicate with
for the
them.
wedding so that nobody like crazy would show up.
Yeah.
Because back then we were having 2,000 people come to some of my sister's weddings, and so
Yeah.
they would provide security just to vet.
That's good.
Not to fully backtrack, but I really appreciated you opening up about how tough things were like
Yeah.
after your third, because I know just like from what we've been through, like it's the pregnancy hormones are no joke. Like it's very hard for a woman to recover from giving birth. Like it's a really big thing. So I guess like what did you learn from that experience? Like how did you come out of that? Because
And you only
from my
experienced that with your third?
yeah, it was only your third, right?
Well, my third was the worst. So I had it. I didn't know really with my first what was happening, but
That's so scary for me.
I remember I was like, I'm in a fog. Like I
That's
just
somebody
don't feel
who's
myself, and it was probably
trying to
for
get
6
pregnant.
months, so it wasn't bad. Still doing normal life. We were still newly married. I was like, still kind of honeymoon phase. And then we actually had a stillbirth after Gideon, and then
that's right.
after I delivered her, Annabelle, I had baby blues for probably 6 months, and it wasn't anything to the extreme that it was this time. And then Evie was a little bit not too bad, but this one I think a lot of it was I had just not taken very good care of myself during pregnancy. And then, like I said, like as far as taking vitamins, eating healthy, all of that. So I think my body was just depleted of all the vitamins and minerals that I needed, and it gave it to the baby. Because even during the pregnancy, I felt just exhausted all the time. And I had other 2 kids that I was chasing after. But then I think there was just that whole, it compiled with all of the other things and then postpartum, and this was the worst that I had ever experienced. So yeah, I had it a little bit with each kid, but nothing to this extreme.
You know what's crazy is before we had Gunner, like you were at a really good place.
Right before, yeah.
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 And so it was kind of weird.
I think the nesting mode hit or something. Got my third wind right before I had him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean just like
It's true, yeah.
physically and mentally,
What is he trying to say with this?
like you were doing good. It's not like we went into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this Abby and those guys probably understand that they have multiple kids. It's not about how good you plan or how good you're doing. It's an imbalance
In a low point.
Yeah,
of
that's
chemicals
true.
in your
You
brain.
were doing good. And so it's kind of
Well, and even because we went on a big road trip 6 weeks after having Gunner, we went out west for like 2 weeks, and I was like still feeling good. So it didn't hit, like the postpartum stuff did not hit until probably 3 months or 2.5 months postpartum. And then I just like everything crumbled after that. And I would wish that on no mom, but I know a lot of moms go through it. And
I would say most.
the thing that probably helped me the most was I was talking to a counselor once a week, just talking through a lot of family stuff, a lot of spiritual stuff. It was a Christian counselor, and just talking about what got
Called it.
me to this point, or what. And some of it was hormones, but a lot of it was just other things, like I've said, spiritual things.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm.
Yeah, it was everything hitting all at once. And so I think the thing that got through, obviously, I think working through the things about what do I believe. And I think that was a lot of it was I didn't know why I believed what I believed growing up. I just believed it because that's what we grew up with. And so I came to this point of I'm either going to believe this or I'm not. And that crossroads was a super scary place to come to, and
it's great to hear that at least you questioned why do I believe what I believe at some point, and I won't say anything about where you went after that, but
In
oh,
1984, the Air Jordan was banned from the game. Nike could have paid a fine,
what are
but
those
they didn't.
socks?
Why should we pay $5,000?
It was
Those
it was
socks,
scary
dude.
because like I've never done that. Like I've never, and like I said earlier, I just never was gonna be the one that questioned that. And I'm married. I have 3 kids.
But it says so much about how your parents dealt with spirituality to say that you thought it was virtuous to say, I'm never going to question. I'm never going to have any questions about what
I
they
kept
tell me.
thinking
Should have it all together.
Yeah, I should have it all together. Like
Nobody, yeah.
I'm seasoned. I shouldn't.
And the fact that you think that not questioning means you have it all together is just so, it, eh,
To be struggling with this. And so I had to work through just from rock bottom. Like, okay, where am I gonna go from here? I just kind of wanted to sulk in it for a while.
And sorry to pause 3 times in a row so quickly, but yeah, it's setting all these kids up, especially the girls, because they have kids so young. It's that like to have a crisis at some point while they have so many other things going on. Like normal, like normal people living Christianity, had my crisis at 19 or whenever I was going to college and stuff. And it's so much easier to have a crisis of faith when you don't have 3 kids and a husband and all this stuff going on and a brother who's going to prison.
But I knew that that was not healthy for our marriage, for my kids, and so that's where talking to a counselor, talking to people at church, talking to other moms that had similar situations was super helpful for me. And then just taking care of myself, because at this point I was eating my kids' leftovers. I was not, I just didn't want to make a healthy meal for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't really care to eat sometimes. And so he was taking care of me, making meals, making sure I was still nursing. And then at 6 months postpartum, I decided, okay, for my mental health, it's best if I stop. Because I've not been one that's like, oh, I just love nursing and it's so bonding for me. Like, with Gideon, I stopped at 3 months. Evie, I stopped at 6 months. And Gunner, I think it was like around 7, 8 months. But when I stopped nursing and started working out was really, really healthy for me. And then just eating healthier, I saw a huge drastic change. And just being honestly, just being open and honest with people about how I was doing, instead of like people in church, how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, we're doing good. And I'm sure they could see like the devastation and the sadness in my eyes. But I finally got.
Also, I notice I like cover my mouth every time I swallow. I think it's because I think it's gonna make noise, but that's
I'm not doing good. Like,
subconsciously.
I'm struggling. I'm struggling. Like, do I even want to be here? Like,
Oh gosh.
And then I had to go even talk to my doctor and be like, hey, this is where I'm at. And it was super hard, but I also wouldn't change that season for anything, because I am today. I've grown so much in the last really just 6 months. I've grown so much. So I think just taking care of myself, he was such a good support through it all, and not making me feel bad for going through it, but helping me through it. And so I don't know, I think it was just, I was really just fighting for months and months to feel better.
That makes me sad.
Thank you so much for opening about that. I know, like, it's super hard to be vulnerable, especially, like, I feel like specifically as moms, like, we want to, like, nurture and, like, be an example and have it all together. And it's also a point where it can be scary on such a big scale to, like, be vulnerable as a mom specifically, because they get, they have that expectation online and specifically for moms. And so, like, I really admire you being so vulnerable like that, because I know as a mom hearing you speak, like, there's so many things about your story that I'm like, that's an exact parallel. And I think so many other moms out there are feeling the exact same way, but are just ashamed to, like, admit that.
Yeah. And I wish I would have gotten help sooner and just been more open and been more, because I feel like it wouldn't have gotten to that point of, I don't even want to be here. I feel like if I would have just, before I kept
awful. That's awful to hear. And I'm glad that she recognizes that it's something that she should have done earlier. And I'm looking at the time right now. Okay, 20 minutes left. I'm just gonna power through. Anybody wants to hang
Going
around? I'm
down
gonna power through.
that road, I wish I would have just gone and talked to somebody, gone and talked to the counselor sooner, like just been open and real with people where I was and
I completely forgot about the thing I said earlier.
Because I feel like it wouldn't have gotten that bad.
When life is so hard like that, how did you bring yourself to go seek out a counselor? Was that something that you decided on your own? Was that something that Austin was like, hey, I think you need to consider this? How did you make that decision?
At that point, I had actually been talking to a friend at church that had really hard postpartums as well, and I was telling her, here are some of my symptoms, and she was like, I think you're dealing with some bad postpartum depression. And
I was just gonna say, I've noticed she has not said depression until right this second.
Alongside that, like other family issues, I think are really hard on you. She's like, I would really suggest, and this is somebody I love and trust. She's like, I suggest that you go get Christian counseling. And so I was really scared because I don't know why I had this thought of like you lay on a couch and you talk to this counselor and they ask you all these prompting
because your parents have shielded you from the reality of what that
questions, and then what if and I always have that fear in the back of my mind of what if they go and tell somebody like,
yeah,
I'm a Duggar, like what if this gets out? But
that kind of stuff has happened.
Yeah,
so
with
there's
just
always
friends.
That fear in the back of
where like you open up to a friend and
they
end up going to tell the media.
Tell somebody. Yeah. And so with it being a licensed counselor, like they legally cannot go and talk to anybody, I felt more open, and I told him, I was like, hey, what do you think about this? And he was like, babe, anything to get you feeling better. He's like, go and do it.
Thank you to Haya for sponsoring this portion of today's episode. Without fail, multiple times a day, Griffin will come up to us, and what does he say?
I tell you what, I have never seen this many embedded ads in addition to AdSense ads. This is pretty crazy, Matt and Abby.
th.com/unplanned and get your kids the full body nourishment they need to grow into healthy adults.
They are probably making so much money off
to your
this.
Doctor. We're talking to her and she's like, well, I can prescribe this or this. And I was like, okay, tell me what is the root cause? And then how are we going to, like, a medication can mask what's going on. It can trick your hormones, your chemicals, whatever.
Yes, licensed. Thank God they were licensed. I don't know who's going to watch this at any point in the future. Like he's saying, your general practitioner can administer you mental health medication, but licensed therapy is so great, I suppose, even if it's Christian, although I think they can be biased. But God, just get help if you need it, wherever you can find it.
But what is going on here, and how can we fix the root problem?
Well, because I asked her, I said, is there anything else? Because I was at the point where she was like, I think you need to get on some depression medication. And I was at the point of, okay,
well, yes, if you're saying you don't want to be here anymore, I agree with that.
I know where I'm at. I'm not to that point where I feel like it's life or death situation. Just honestly, I'm not at that point.
It is based on what you said, a life or death
I'm not having
kind of situation.
Made any plans.
Yeah.
But I feel like I am at a point where I need to do something.
Okay, sorry for pausing again a million times in a row, but yeah, again, for future people watching this, if you're thinking about not being here or that the world would be better without you, that is a time to get help, regardless of if you've made a plan.
I said, is there anything else I can do that you would recommend, like lifestyle changes or anything besides getting on meds? Like, is there any other steps that I could do to help my health and my mental health?
She was like, well, like the reason why she's, there can be a chemical imbalance. So we had a lot of her labs done and stuff, and at that point, there wasn't anything that was like, okay, this is way off, or this hormone or whatever.
I did have a couple vitamins that were really low.
Yeah, and
that could cause postpartum depression or just depression symptoms.
Yeah, and so
it is not a surprise to me that Joy was depressed during this time, because I think this is when Josh's hearings were going on and stuff. It's like not a shock. She doesn't need a deficiency
Had
to
her
be
on
depressed.
prescription doses of those vitamins or whatever the doctor prescribed. But ultimately, she's like she needs to work through. She needs to talk through these issues and like go way back and figure out why she has this hurt or and this is probably more outside the baby blue stuff.
Yeah,
This
I
is
think
just the part of the perfect storm, just
I hate calling it baby blues. Just call it postpartum
other
depression.
stuff that had
a
happened.
lot of things from just growing up or whatever that I had never really dealt with. I had just built up and it all just exploded at the same time.
True.
Yeah, and so she was like, she needs to be talking through, working through her thoughts, having someone, ask her questions in a way that gets her to start thinking about and just so I was like all for the counseling. Like I don't want to mask a problem. If the problem gets to the situation where it's like, dude, you're fixing to have a stroke if you don't, get on some, some medication, then yeah, let's get on some medication, right? So you don't just die right here,
think I
right
get
now. But
what he's
like,
saying.
okay, well, how can we change our
Yes.
eating habits so you don't have a stroke in the future or heart attack or whatever? And so counseling, being around good influences, moms that had gone through stuff. Like I was really encouraging her to, you need to do that. Like reach out or.
I was really bad about just.
I think
I'll be fine. I don't need to talk to anybody. Like, I guess I felt like I had to keep up this persona of like I've got it all together. I'm this, I grew up with a bunch of siblings. My family, we had, my mom was super organized growing up. Like I don't know how she did it, but she really was organized, and I just felt like I had to be there already. Like I have, even with my first kid, I have to have everything figured out. And I realized that is not reality. Like I don't
Reflect on that. That is not reality.
have it all figured out. And just being around other moms that were like just similar, like here's our lives, we're kind of a mess, but we're loving it and we're figuring it out as we go.
Everybody's
and we're
a
doing
mess.
our best
And your mom was a mess in ways that she didn't let you see
job
too.
at raising our kids.
Was that the scary
That's
thing
just
though?
the
Because
truth.
from the outside, people probably viewed you as having everything together, and so you feel all this pressure to uphold this standard, and then
That was
you're
literally
going
part
through
of their
postpartum
intro.
depression,
In 19 Kids and oh no, we may not have it. Never
and
mind.
there's family drama. Your
They didn't say
sisters
we may not
released
have
these
it.
books, which now you're questioning certain things. Like, were you almost like at a point of like, I don't even know what's real. Like, I don't even know what I stand for or what I believe, because you were just in a really vulnerable, tough spot. Like, is that essentially?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it, and I remember like we had so many. I'm a late night talker. He is not, but I would be at 10, 11 p.m. just like talking about everything. And I remember one night I was like, I just feel like I've been acting my whole life, like almost, and not that it was real. Like I had a great childhood, and I didn't feel like that in my childhood. Like, but I feel like I subconsciously.
I need these people to take their thoughts and apply them to their child. Like it feels like they're always defending their parents in a way. Like nothing bad could have ever happened to me in my childhood. My parents did nothing wrong. I just have these problems for some reason. Please reflect.
Was always, I've got to keep this look, and I've always got to have a smile, and I've always got to whatever, because I don't know. I think that's just how.
Part of it's kind of self-preservation. Like you just get tired of attacks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so
too.
you
gonna
kind
bump it
of
up a little
put
bit,
on because I
shit.
came in
That's not what I
to the filming world from I was what 22,
Sorry, that was
21, right? So I'd lived a very normal, life, not on camera, whatever. And then coming into it, and then you start getting attacked, and your initial reaction is, I'm going to put my guard up with everybody because I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of the criticism and whatever. And so then I think it creates a bunch of unhealthy habits where you just don't have genuine, deep relationships with people, and you're just always putting.
Yeah, exactly. Like saying you don't want to be here is suicidal. That is something to take like freaking seriously, and it's something they need to put a name to. He's doing all these metaphors. Oh, if somebody's having a stroke, blah blah blah. Put a name to what she actually went through. Like it's
On you always
it's just crazy how they try to avoid that so much. Like her avoiding saying postpartum depression this whole time. My cat's behind a computer.
Like if you're in public, whatever, you're always trying to smile, you're always trying to whatever, because you just don't want people to snap that shot of you where you look like you're miserable. And so there's a fine line of being real with people, and not airing out all your dirty laundry, but being genuine and having real relationships with people.
And Joy, what did you take away from that? Like, what are things that you decided to keep from your childhood that you were taught, and then things that you decided to distance yourself from?
I'm still working through it all. Like, I don't have it all figured out. But I think that there are, I guess for me personally, and I don't want to speak for all of my siblings, but I feel like for me, I took a lot of the things that my parents said is, oh, these are our standards, as this is what God says and this is the Bible. And the Bible says that everybody has to wear skirts to be holy.
And then you look down on people that don't.
Yeah.
But her mother does not.
Okay, again, you had a problem with thinking that you needed this checklist to be a good person. Reflect on the things that your parents told you were holy. You're like, she's saying exactly what I said earlier, but she won't admit that those two things are connected, that her parents are the source of this.
Not.
Yeah, my mom does not look down on people that are different than her at all.
Do you think people get...
But she enforced this with her children to the point of making them feel guilty. Like, let's be real. Joy would have felt guilty if she didn't do that.
Wrong about your parents? Do you think people associate those strict rules as them having some evil intent, but in your opinion, it's not that way at all?
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm sure they do. I don't know. I'm sure they do.
I think that's kind of the thing with standards.
That's the disconnect for you guys.
And convictions, like if we have a standard of conviction, it might be because of something we experienced in our life and the Lord showed us, right? And then this is what we do in our house, and this is how Gideon, Evelyn, and Gunnar have been brought up. But it may not be a standard that they need to keep because it's not something that they experienced or a struggle they had, so they needed to abstain from something because, whatever, they were struggling. And so standard...
Okay, I get what you're saying there, but wearing jean skirts to your ankles while you're swimming, I just feel like that doesn't apply to something that you're applying to your children because of something you experienced.
Standards and convictions, I don't think necessarily are like passed down to generation to generation. It's a one-on-one personal relationship with the Lord. Each person gets their own from Him, and it's not something that's necessarily carried down.
A lot of my parents' standards came from just things like that in their past. And I know from my mom personally, a lot of her modesty standards came because when she was younger, she had no modesty standards at all, and she wore whatever she wanted, and she felt like when she got saved, that's something that God convicted her of. She was a cheerleader. And so she wanted to change that. So
that was something Jim Bob convicted her of, and that there's tons of evidence of that.
Yeah, the question, were you asking what we were going to do different?
Honestly, I forget what my original question was, but I think everything you guys, everything you said though was super interesting. I mean, you've brought up your parents a lot and mentioned them a lot. I'm curious, how often do you guys spend time together? Because you guys do live fairly close, right?
Yeah, we see my parents fairly regularly, and they'll come to the birthday parties, or we'll go over to some of the cousins' birthday parties and see them there. So we do see them quite a bit.
How does that change your perspective now, like being a parent yourself and knowing that you are obviously like...
Liberty Mutual has savings for all. Mary had a little something.
The most affordable 12-month GLP-1 program with
Nabby,
the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy for one payment up front, 12 months.
No parent is perfect, right? So how does that change your perspective?
I will tell her you said hi. That's my cat. So
of your parents, now that you are going through the same thing they did for you when you were a kid.
I feel like every kid probably, once they have kids of their own, is like, oh, okay. Like a lot of light bulbs start coming on. Oh, I see why my parents did this, or we didn't do this. And I feel like I've hit a lot of those moments of like, that makes sense. Or I don't know how they did it, especially with my mom having 19 kids.
Holy cow.
She is incredibly patient. She is so organized. And she is so humble about it. She makes it look so easy. She's got it all together. I never heard my mom yell growing up at us. Like, she just didn't. And I always thought, oh, I'm going to be like that. And then I realized that's a choice that she has to make, and it is so hard. She chooses to not get upset, and she chooses to be patient. And
a lot of self-restraint.
It takes a lot of self-control. Yeah. And I felt like I beat myself up for the longest time because I'm like, I only have one kid and I've already yelled at him and he's only like 9 months. Like, stop moving when I'm changing your diaper. All this stuff. Like, you get frustrated. Yeah. But she just handled everything with grace. And so I think even just simple things like that.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that was IBLP influenced. I always get IBP and IBLP like mouth. I wonder how much of that was influenced by Jim Bob's involvement in IBLP because that was a big emphasis on women not being loud and not speaking up and not et cetera, you know. And you are not involved in that anymore, as far as I know, Joy and Austin. So
I've really admired, and I'm blown away at how she did it.
Well, I was shocked talking to Ginger and Jill. Like, they were just casually saying how your mom showed up for them when they were having babies, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a second, hold up. You have 19 children of your own, and then you're pulling up at your grandbaby's like birth and doing all this help for your daughter when you have 19 children.
Yep.
I don't know how many grandkids there are, but I'm sure there's like a lot. I don't know if it's 100. I don't
like
know what it is. But
500.
It's in the 30s now, but
Okay.
every baby that all of us have had, she'll come for at least 2 days. With my first two, it was like a week.
Well, yeah, if you want her, like,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
she's
She's
very
not like
respectful
in your
of.
face about like I will come over,
Yeah.
but she's like I'll come over, I'll make meals. Like she cleans the house, she makes the meals. She watched Gideon and Evie like plays. She has her lolly bag that she brings along, so it has
That's
Lego.
what the grandkids call her.
She's
Lolly.
Lolly too. Like that's her grandparent
Lolly.
name.
Oh.
So
That's
she
so
has her
sweet.
lolly bag, which has Legos, Play-Doh, like
where does lolly come from? I wonder. I've never heard of
kinetic
that
sand.
except for Michelle
and
Duggar.
that she carries everywhere she goes, and she has her Zollies, which are like these healthy suckers that don't have sugar in them. And like she spoils them, but I don't understand. I asked her actually, it was probably 2 months ago. I was like, how many days a week do you babysit for like the grandkids? She's like, oh, she loves babysitting. She loves going to the kids' houses. She's like, probably 5 days a week, just casually. I was like, Mama, like that. What in the world? And she'll take Josie and Jordan, like they love playing with the grandkids.
Aw.
So she'll take them with them, and they'll just spend the afternoon or just a couple hours
She
at different
probably
kids' houses.
feels
Wow.
Very high
weird
capacity
without-
woman. Like,
Yeah,
she
I
I
can.
was gonna say she probably, after having 19 kids, probably feels weird having an afternoon without having
She
to
can take
care
a lot
about
of load.
I was wondering more specifically, like math question, but
high capacity woman. Also, something about that just makes me giggle.
how your mom literally had 19 like how many different pregnancies? Because there was
Well,
no
there's
twins
two
in there.
sets of twins, so it'd
Okay.
be, but she also had a stillbirth with her
Mhm.
last, so it would have been, I think, coming out to like 18 pregnancies, and then she had a miscarriage between one of them too. So
Doesn't that, like, now that you've gone through all like the process of like pregnancy, birth, nursing, like all that stuff, like are you like
Okay, my last two, who I have here with me. We got 6 minutes left.
What
Don't
in
worry.
yeah, constantly.
I am in awe.
In your day-to-day life, I don't really even think about it because that was just but when I stop and I talk like this, I'm like, how in the world? Like I've had 3 kids. How did my mom have 19 kids? It's
That is so
insane.
crazy. I'm just
And that she didn't go
incredibly fertile.
crazy. Like
Yeah.
she still is. I mean, so active.
she's
She
always
wants to be a grandma.
Like,
It's not like
she
she's like, I
loves-
did that. I
yeah.
did my share of the
Yeah.
baby stuff.
she's very selfless. She's
She's
always
almost
looking.
too selfless.
She's always looking for areas to serve others. I know when we've gone through hard times, like one of our themes was when it just seemed like everything was coming apart. Like you'll never meet somebody who is down and out that is a grateful person. Like how can
Well,
you?
You would remind me of that, and I'd be like, I don't want to hear it right now.
Well, but
What? Wait, what?
I was
You're
reminding.
like,
I
just
was.
be grateful.
Well, I had to.
You'll never meet someone who's down and out who's a grateful person. That sounds like something I would have a
Remind
problem
myself
with.
of that. Like we have so many things to be grateful for. When you
Mhm.
start adding up how blessed we are, other things
Honey, yes, of course, but ugh.
fell in comparison. And so you can focus on all the negative, and that'll just weigh you down, and it doesn't do any good. But if you focus on everything that is good,
Okay, but a chemical imbalance in your brain doesn't care about that. Just so you know, it doesn't matter if you're postpartum or if the chemical imbalance is happening at a different time. It doesn't care about how good you have it. Scientifically.
it's hard to have a bad attitude. It
Yeah.
really is. And so for me,
Yeah,
that's
if
what I
you
have to
don't
do when I'm like, oh, life's horrible, blah blah blah,
have
whatever.
medical
I just have to
issues.
start thinking, all right, we've got our health, we've got 3 healthy kids, like
Yeah.
and then we've got home over our head, and
Aren't kids just the best too? Because like life can feel like it sucks sometimes, and you just look at the joy from
Yeah.
your 2-year-old
Just
face.
seeing you get
No
them out
care
of
in the
bed.
world, yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, that's all they needed was to see your face, get them out of their crib.
Like
Yeah.
they just get so stoked about literally nothing.
Yeah.
Like they're just so
Everything,
happy and
Yep.
just joyful about like we get to go swing on the blue swing at the park.
No, I'm like blue M&M, and you're like blue M&M. But really, that's why I just want to give him candy sometimes. I'm like, I just love to see your joy when one singular M&M gives you.
Well, we say that our Gunner was my third. Like, he has been the easiest baby, the happiest baby, and Austin says all the time, he's like, God knew that we needed Gunner. Like, our kids are all.
He was
like,
the hardest
very
one for you to
happy.
have,
Yeah.
but he brings so much joy to our family. He is just the happiest
He's just so
kid.
sweet
it's amazing.
and just happy.
Is there ever a desire for you to also have 19 children?
No. Should I have to say that? No.
But how many do you guys have a number in mind?
I don't know. We've always said 4 or 5 or 6.
4 or 5 or 6. That's way different.
When you come from
Oh, girl,
No,
it was.
Oh my god. I'm like a little shaky.
I'm like a little.
Yeah, you can go back and watch.
I have a big beef with Matt and Abby. I don't know much about them besides the fact that all the freaking embedded ads are nothing compared to.
And they're like, Joy, how many kids?
Double the ads.
I want 10 kids.
I mean,
when I was 12, I said I wanted 9 kids.
Come from 19. When you come from 19, 6 or 8, like it's not that big of a deal.
It's conservative, but we've talked about it. Like
I came from 2 and I wanted 9.
I feel like right now we're at a good spot. Like, I feel like we can spend quality time
now
with
if I
kids,
get 1.
and I don't want to. I mean,
our goal's not quantity; it's quality.
Yeah, really it is. And I think we want to be able to effectively raise the kids that we do have, and so I think we're taking.
Oh, again, that is a slight. I'm not saying it's a slight, like on purpose, but effectively raise the kids that we do have. I wish none of these people will openly criticize their parents, and I only say that because I think it's healthy. It's a healthy relationship to be able to openly criticize your parents and for them to say, yeah, maybe that was crazy. Maybe that was a weird choice. Okay, got it. Like, I feel like they're not there with Michelle and Jim Bob, and that bothers me just because it's a barrier to a really authentic relationship, with your parents.
Taking it 1 by 1 and maybe 2 by 2 eventually. Who knows if we have twins? That'd be fun.
You guys just announced that you're moving, which is so exciting, and I want to know the details. I just saw People Magazine was like, they're moving. So I don't know where you guys are going, but I would love to hear more about that.
We don't know where we're going. So
the plan is.
Also, I just noticed that Joy's the only one who doesn't have her shoes, or she has her shoes off in the house. Everybody else has their shoes on. That's actually uncomfortable for me. Everybody should have their shoes off.
Say in Arkansas.
Yeah.
But
got your shoes on the rug. I don't like that.
Arkansas, more than likely.
Yeah.
Especially those fundie white rugs. I hate that.
We are. Well, it's funny because our 5-year plan, since we've been married, is kind of happening.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of crazy. Well, we've always said when Gideon was 6, 7, or 8, we wanted to eventually buy some land, have a farm of our own, all of that. And so the house that we were in currently, it's not that. And so it's kind of we've been working towards for years on eventually buying a farm, having the cow. We have cows at his parents' house, but we want to have them on our land.
Mm-hmm.
Have just, I don't know.
I grew up on a farm, 110, 12 acres, and we had cows.
Oh, we got one more for our home stretch.
And we cut our own hay and fixing fences, and I feel like it taught my sister and I a lot of responsibility, and gave us a lot of good opportunities to just learn a lot of different stuff. And so I don't know, I want to give my kids that same upbringing, that same opportunity that I had. And so that's kind of been our goal, is to sell our house and get some land, and so we're still looking.
Well, we're so excited for you guys. It sounds like you have a lot of really fun things happening in your life, and thank you for being on the show. Thank you for flying all the way out to Arizona. And where can people find you guys to connect with you on social media?
Well, we're on YouTube every once in a while, maybe, but not right now. But you can follow us on Instagram. Austin's not really super active on his, but you can follow me on Instagram.
Follow me.
And then we have Facebook as well.
Thanks for sharing your story today.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having us.
Thank you
really
for having
appreciate
us.
it.
Okay, well, thank you guys for watching. And as always, this is where we're going to say peace out, dudes. 3, 2, 1. Peace out, dudes.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, that is a lot to think about. I think the main takeaway I have from all of that in particular is that all of the Duggar kids really, really have have something against even minorly criticizing their parents. And I think that feels like a barrier to an authentically honest opinion about your parents, or an authentic relationship with your parents. But Yeah, a little more than I thought that they'd get, or that we'd get. I thought it was going to be a lot of nothing burger kind of stuff where she's just like, saying the same old, but okay, right? It was decent. I didn't know that she had postpartum depression. I didn't know that she struggled with that. I think that that's nice that she mentioned that, and it's helpful to other women, especially other Fundy women, that she said that out loud. Like postpartum depression, the whole with the depression attached. That's not common. Not many women do that in that circle. So, all right. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. Thank you. I think my two who were around, it's gone back and forth a lot of like different numbers, but my two here are left. Thank you for being here. I will see you guys later. If you have any good ideas for things to watch in the future, let me know. And love ya. I'll see you on Tumblr. Bye bye.